Hi. My name is Jade Thompson. I'm 32 years old. And this is the story of how someone I trusted, someone I helped, tried to erase everything I built. She smiled in my face, while pulling strings behind my back to ruin me. But here's the thing about betrayal. It always leaves fingerprints. Before I tell you how I uncovered the lies, exposed her, and turned the tables, I want you to settle in. Seriously. Grab your popcorn, your snacks, your fuzzy blanket, whatever you need, because this isn't just a story. This is War in Heels. If you're new here, welcome. I'm so glad you found this corner of the internet where we tell stories that hit deep. The kind that make you mad, make you cry, and sometimes make you cheer. Do me a favor. Drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories reach. Are you in Atlanta like me? Or watching from London, Lagos, or LA? Let me know, I really do read them all. And if you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and hit that button. I promise you, you do not want to miss the rest of what's coming. Now, let's talk about her. The woman who tried to destroy me. When I first met Camille, she looked like someone who needed a win. She was 29, fresh out of a bad job situation, and she showed up to her first day at our office with that tight, nervous smile people wear when they're trying to hide how scared they are. I remember she kept adjusting her blazer. It didn't fit quite right, and she avoided eye contact like she wasn't sure if she deserved to be there. She had joined the team as a junior project coordinator, technically a few steps below me since I was already leading product development by then. But from day one she was assigned to my unit. So I was her direct supervisor, her mentor, her safety net. And God help me, I took that role seriously. I remember sitting across from her that first morning. She was clumsy, spilling coffee on her onboarding packet, apologizing way too much. Everyone else just gave her a polite smile and went back to their keyboards. But I leaned in. I told her I'd spilled coffee on my first performance review. It wasn't true, but I said it anyway just to make her laugh. And she did. That's how it started. The truth is, I saw a little of myself in Camille. When I started at that company 4 years earlier, no one had guided me. No one had taken me under their wing. I'd clawed my way up with 12-hour workdays, skipped lunches, and spreadsheets I built from scratch on weekends. Took everything I had. So when Camille came along, unsure, unsteady, and clearly in over her head, I decided I wasn't going to let her drown. Not on my watch. I gave her real chances. Real support. When she messed up a client briefing her second week, forgot to confirm the meeting time, sent the deck late, and nearly blew a $20,000 deal, I didn't throw her under the bus. I took the heat in front of our director, then stayed late with her afterward, walking her through every line of that deck until she understood what went wrong. When the team grumbled that she asked too many questions or took too long to write follow-up emails, I defended her. Told them to give her time. Said she was learning. That she'd catch on, and she did eventually. Fully. People started seeing her differently. Because I did. We grew close, or at least I thought we did. Some weeks we'd grab lunch together outside the office. I'd bring her extra coffee when she looked tired. When she was going through a breakup, some guy named Marcus who strung her along for months, I let her cry in the break room and then I took her out for dinner. Thai food. My treat. We weren't best friends. I won't go that far. But there was a bond. Or so I believed. One time, our division got hit with a last-minute budget change and everyone's bonus was on the chopping block. I had already cleared my Q4 performance bonus, but Camille? Hers was borderline. Too many late submissions, not enough measurable output. And yet when our director asked me for recommendations on bonus cuts, I didn't mention her name. I vouched for her. Pulled stats from a side project she worked on, dressed it up in data, and argued that she was making quiet progress. She got the bonus. She never knew what I did. Looking back, I think I needed to believe I was building someone up. Like maybe if I gave someone the support I never got, it would make up for all the years I had to struggle alone. But people don't always receive help the way you intend. Some people take it as a gift. Others take it as leverage. And a very small, toxic few? They take it as a challenge. I remember the first time something felt off. It was a Friday morning and I had just come back from a meeting with our VP. Camille was standing by the coffee machine chatting with another coworker, Jenna I think, and as soon as I walked in they went dead silent. Not the casual kind of silence either. The sharp kind. Like the end of a sentence that wasn't meant for your ears. Camille looked startled. Then she smiled too fast and said, "Hey Jade. Everything good?" I smiled back. But something in me blinked. Just a flicker of discomfort. Nothing I could name. Nothing I could accuse. I told myself I was being paranoid. That they were probably just gossiping about someone's dating life or weekend plans. Not about me. Why would it be about me? I brushed it off. Then came the slip-ups. Camille started missing small tasks she never used to miss. Follow-ups, action items, scheduling meetings I specifically assigned to her. When I brought it up, she'd apologize, but a little too quickly. Like she already had the excuse locked and loaded. One day I found a client call on my calendar that I never scheduled, but my name was on it. When I asked Camille, she said I had added it. That she was just following my lead. But I hadn't. I was sure of it. I let it go. Maybe I was tired. Maybe I was overthinking. Or maybe I just didn't want to believe what was becoming increasingly clear. There was one moment I wish I could go back to, not to change it, just to listen to my own gut. It was the night of our team's year-end celebration. A casual dinner. Nothing fancy, just tacos and cocktails at a rooftop downtown. Camille had shown up looking incredible. She had on this burnt orange jumpsuit and heels that made her nearly eye level with me. She was laughing more than usual. Flushed cheeks. Confident. It looked good on her. I was proud of her. She walked up to me at one point, drink in hand, and said, "You know, I wouldn't be here without you." I smiled. "I'm just glad you're killing it now." And then she said something I didn't fully understand, not at the time. She tilted her head, leaned in close, and said, "Sooner or later you'll be working for me." She laughed after she said it. Maybe a little too hard. I laughed too because I thought it was a joke. It wasn't. There were cracks in the glass, but I didn't want to see them. I still let her into meetings. Still CC'd her on high-level emails. Still gave her access to our team dashboard, the one I built from scratch that outlined every pitch, every deadline, every metric that mattered. I gave her everything. Because I believed that when you help people rise, they remember who lifted them. But some people, they rise just high enough to kick the ladder out from under you. That's what she did. Not all at once. It started slowly. Silently. In shadows. And by the time I realized what was happening, she had already planted the seeds of my downfall. But I'll get to that. First, you need to know how it all began to fall apart. At first it was little things. Things I couldn't prove. Things that made me second-guess myself. And that's exactly how sabotage works when it's done by someone who knows you well enough to hide it in plain sight. There was this one morning. A Monday, I remember it clearly, when my director, Miguel, asked me why I hadn't responded to an urgent client email from Friday. I blinked at him, confused. What email? He showed it to me. It was right there, addressed to me, CC'd to Camille. I never saw it. I checked my inbox 3 times that morning, then my spam folder, then even went into my archived mail. Nothing. Like it had just vanished. Camille stood by the coffee machine looking at me with this puzzled little frown, like she too was shocked. She even said, "That's weird. I saw it. Thought maybe you were just swamped." Swamped. That word echoed in my brain for the rest of the day. I wasn't swamped. I was organized. I was precise. I was the kind of person who color-coded her Slack channels and replied to emails at 10 p.m. if they had the word urgent in the subject line. But now, it was like I was slipping. Or looked like I was. And she just kept standing there. Watching. Then came the rumors. It started with a whisper. Literally. I overheard my name in the hallway. 2 coworkers laughing softly, one of them saying, "Well, I heard she's been missing deadlines lately." That hit me like ice water. Missing deadlines? Me. I practically invented the internal deadline tracker for our team. People used to joke that I ran the department like it was my own personal ship. Tight, clean, fast. So I stopped them. Calmly. Smiling. "Hey, sorry to interrupt. What was that about missed deadlines?" One of them stammered, "Oh, nothing serious. Just something Camille mentioned, about a project being delayed." I felt my stomach twist. Camille had been in charge of timeline reporting for only 2 weeks. And suddenly I was unreliable. Then things got worse. She started using this phrase I hate. That performative concern people use when they're setting you up. "Are you okay?" Always with that head tilt. That fake softness. Like she was worried. Like she was trying to help. One day after a team huddle, she followed me back to my desk, leaned over and said, "You've just seemed off lately. I don't want to overstep, but if there's anything you need." I turned and looked at her. Really looked. She wasn't smiling anymore. She was assessing. And I realized she wanted me to say something. To admit to being tired. Or stressed. Or overwhelmed. To give her ammunition. I just nodded and said, "I'm good, thanks." But I wasn't. Because every time I tried to trust her, things went sideways. She once offered to send out the final version of our product roadmap presentation. Said she'd double-check everything before submitting. It was due at 9 a.m. the next morning. I stayed up late making sure it was perfect. Cross-referenced every data point, polished every slide. And then, the next morning I woke up to 5 missed calls. She had sent the wrong version. An early draft. One that had placeholder slides and outdated metrics. Made me look careless. Disorganized. When I confronted her, she said, "Oh no. Jade, I swear I sent the one you gave me. Maybe there was a sync issue." A sync issue. Sure. Then came the HR email. Just a plain message. Subject line. Check-in requested. The moment I saw it, my chest tightened. I walked into that meeting calm on the outside, but my heart was punching against my ribs. Inside was Renee, our HR lead, and Miguel, my director. They both looked serious. Not cold, not unkind, but very formal. "Jade, we just wanted to touch base on a few concerns that have come up," Renee said gently. "Nothing disciplinary. Just some things we're hearing from the team." "The team?" I tried to steady my voice. "What kind of things?" Miguel folded his hands. "There've been a few reports of communication issues. Missed deadlines. A lack of follow-through." I blinked. "I haven't missed any deadlines." Renee nodded. "We understand. That's why this is just a check-in. We want to give you the opportunity to respond." And then they started listing examples. Specific ones. The missed email. The wrong deck. The client call that never got logged. All the things that Camille had touched. All the things she was close to. Every incident tied back to her somehow. And in that moment I realized, this wasn't just bad luck or miscommunication. It was a pattern. And it was being weaponized against me. I sat there nodding politely, my palms sweating. I didn't want to sound defensive. I didn't want to throw Camille under the bus. Not without proof. Not yet. So I just said, "I'll be more diligent. I'll review my process." And I walked out with a smile that didn't reach my eyes. The moment I was alone in the elevator, I felt my face flush. Shame, rage, humiliation, it all crashed over me at once. I had built my reputation from nothing. I'd earned every ounce of respect through years of showing up, going the extra mile, being the fixer. Now I was being painted as the problem. By someone I lifted. Someone who once cried in my car over a breakup and now smiled at me in meetings like we were still friends, while quietly gutting my credibility with precision. A week later, I got a call from a client we'd been working with for months. He sounded confused. "Hey Jade, just wondering why Camille reached out directly to reschedule our next check-in. Isn't that normally you?" I froze. Camille wasn't even on that project. I said something polite, hung up, and sat there staring at my screen. And then I checked the shared calendar. She'd removed me from the invite. Silently. Without telling me. Then rebooked the meeting under her name, so I wouldn't even know it was happening. That was the moment it hit me. She wasn't just sabotaging me. She was replacing me. I wanted to believe this was all some mistake. A misunderstanding. A miscommunication. But the more I looked, the more I saw it. Quiet edits to reports I had written. Slack messages that got deleted. Feedback meetings I was accidentally left out of. She was planting seeds. And I was the only one who could see the garden she was growing. Everyone else just saw smiles and helpfulness. They saw a rising star. Because that's the most dangerous kind of sabotage. The kind that wears a mask of competence. And Camille? She wore it perfectly. She started talking to Miguel more. Just casual check-ins, she called them. She'd come back from his office glowing, bragging about how he was really impressed with her initiative. She began looping herself into projects that had nothing to do with her. Volunteering to support, but somehow always stepping in when I was out of the room. By the time I started digging into my own files, it was already happening. She was erasing me. One spreadsheet, one email thread, one missed meeting at a time. I remember one moment that nearly broke me. We were in a strategy meeting. My presentation. My deck. My roadmap. And halfway through, Camille cuts in. Slides up in her seat, clicks to the next slide and says, Let me add something here if I may. She talked for 5 minutes. Interrupted my closing. Reframed the entire project as our idea. Specifically her collaboration with me. I just sat there. Smiling. Numb. Because what else could I do? Call her out in front of the VP? She knew I wouldn't. That's what made it easy for her. That night I went home and didn't eat dinner. I just sat on the floor of my apartment in the dark, my laptop open, email inbox glowing. I clicked through my sent mail, my project logs, old threads Camille had been copied on. I wasn't imagining it. There were changes. Missing attachments. Reworded updates that subtly downplayed my work. It wasn't an attack. It was a drip. A slow bleed of reputation. She didn't need to scream lies about me. She just needed to quietly suggest I wasn't who people thought I was. Let their doubt do the rest. And it was working. The silence from my team. The polite distance from my manager. The way people started going to her first when they had questions. I was disappearing. She was taking everything I'd built, and standing in it like it had always belonged to her. And I knew, if I didn't do something soon, she'd win. It started with an email. Just one line, no warmth, no small talk, only this. Please come to HR at 9 a.m. tomorrow for a mandatory performance review. Performance review? In March. Reviews happened in December. I knew in my gut that this wasn't a review. This was a setup. A burial. A silent execution wrapped in corporate politeness. So I showed up. I wore black. I don't know why. I guess part of me already knew I was attending the funeral of everything I'd worked for. Renee was already in the room when I walked in. So was Miguel. So was Camille. Camille. She sat at the end of the table pretending to be the assistant who had helped compile data for the meeting. Like she was just there to take notes. She couldn't even look me in the eye. Miguel cleared his throat and said, Jade, there've been some growing concerns about your recent performance. Missed deadlines. Incomplete reports. Poor follow-through with clients. He had a stack of printed emails in front of him. Each one cherry-picked, each one taken out of context, each one a thread in the noose they were tying around my name. Camille had brought receipts. Fake ones. Manipulated ones. But they looked real enough to people who weren't paying attention. I tried to defend myself. I never missed that call. It was rescheduled without me. And that report? I finished it. Camille was supposed to submit it. Miguel held up a hand. Let's not assign blame. This isn't about any one person. But it was. It was always about one person. And she was sitting right there. The room got quiet. Renee looked at me like a mother about to break bad news to a child. Effective immediately, she said gently, we're placing you on administrative leave. Just for 2 weeks. To give you time to recalibrate. Recalibrate. I stared at her like she'd just asked me to breathe underwater. I'm not a robot, I said barely above a whisper. I don't need recalibration. I need to not be lied about. She blinked. She didn't respond. Just gave me a thin smile and said, your HR contact will follow up with paperwork. That was it. 3 years of loyalty. Burned down in a 12-minute meeting. I walked out of the building feeling like I didn't have bones. I got into my car, sat behind the wheel and sobbed. Not cried, sobbed. Ugly, shaking, stomach-tight sobs. The kind that sound like screaming even when your mouth is closed. And the worst part? I wasn't even crying about the job. I was crying because no one believed me. No one questioned the sudden shift. No one pulled me aside and said, this doesn't sound like you. No one stood up. Everyone just stepped back and let it happen. Even the people I'd stayed late for, covered shifts for, advocated for. Silence. That's what betrayal does. It isolates you. It makes you a stranger in your own life. The days that followed felt like slow suffocation. I'd wake up in the morning and stare at my phone out of habit, instinctively checking Slack. Only to remember I had been locked out. My company email? Disabled. Access to team docs? Revoked. It was like I had been erased. And Camille? She was still there. Still in the meetings. Still wearing those polished blazers and that soft, helpful smile. Still stepping up while I recalibrated. I imagined her at my desk. Sitting in my chair. Using my keyboard. Probably forwarding herself files I created. Probably rebranding my work with her name on the header. And I just sat at home. On the couch. In silence. I stopped eating much. Food didn't taste like anything. I stopped showering in the morning. Why bother? The only person who called was my sister, and even then I lied. I said I was taking a mental break from work. I didn't tell her that someone I trusted had poisoned my name and left me to drown in it. Because how do you explain that kind of betrayal? It doesn't make sense to people who haven't lived it. It sounds dramatic. It sounds paranoid. But it's real. And when you're living it, it's the loneliest feeling in the world. There was one night I remember clearly. It was raining hard and I couldn't sleep. I went for a drive. I didn't have a destination. I just needed to move. To feel something besides rage and shame. I ended up parked outside the office. The building was dark except for one window on the 3rd floor. My old floor. The lights were still on. I don't know why I did it, but I sat there for almost an hour. Just watching. Imagining Camille at my desk. Imagining my name being slowly scrubbed off the whiteboards. I whispered to myself, this isn't fair. Over and over. This isn't fair. This isn't fair. This isn't fair. But life doesn't care about fair. And snakes don't care who saved them, only that you were close enough to bite. A few days later I got a message from Jenna, the same coworker who once giggled in the hallway when she mentioned I was missing deadlines. Her message said, "Hey, just checking in. Heard you're on leave. Hope everything's okay, red heart." I stared at it for 10 minutes. Hope everything's okay. As if I'd taken a 2-week vacation. As if this wasn't a breakdown wrapped in a professional email. I didn't respond. What was I supposed to say? Actually, I'm spiraling. I cry in my car now. I question every word that comes out of my mouth. I look in the mirror and don't trust the person looking back. I'm not okay, Jenna. I'm unraveling. Instead, I just left her on read. She didn't follow up. No one did. I tried applying for other jobs during that time. But I couldn't focus. I'd stare at my resume and feel this sharp, gnawing fear that Camille had already whispered something about me into the wind. That somewhere behind closed doors I was already blacklisted. And that fear, it clung to me like a second skin. I started having dreams, nightmares really, where I was screaming in a meeting but no one could hear me. Everyone just kept typing, smiling, ignoring me while I slowly vanished. I'd wake up sweating, heart pounding, and still, no one called. No one from HR. No updates. No clarity. Just silence. Then came the final gut punch. Camille posted on LinkedIn. A picture of her standing in front of a glass conference room, beaming. Caption: "Thrilled to be leading our upcoming client innovation series with the incredible team at our company. Huge thanks to Miguel for trusting me with this opportunity. My opportunity. My project. The one I had built from scratch. Pitched, mapped out, secured client backing for. She had stolen it. Rebranded it. And Miguel had handed it to her with a ribbon on top. I threw my phone across the room. I didn't care that it cracked. I didn't care that I cried for an hour afterward. Something broke inside me that day, but not in the way Camille had planned. It wasn't the kind of break that ends you. It was the kind that builds something new. Something quieter. Sharper. Focused. I realized, if I didn't fight back, no one would do it for me. And if she wanted to play dirty, she forgot who taught her the game. It's strange how clarity sometimes comes when you've stopped expecting it. I wasn't looking for anything. I wasn't trying to catch Camille. I was just cleaning. It was a Tuesday afternoon, 2 weeks into my suspension. I hadn't left the house in days. Dishes were piled in the sink. My hair looked like it had given up. And I was folding laundry I didn't even remember washing. I picked up my old work tote from the corner of the room, the one I used to sling over my shoulder every morning like armor. I hadn't touched it since they told me to recalibrate. When I reached into the inside pocket, I felt something hard. My old company-issued USB drive. I stared at it in my palm for a second, then walked to my desk and plugged it in. Most of it was nothing special. Archived decks, quarterly planning notes, template folders. But one folder stopped me cold. Client tracking sync under SOAP. I opened it. Inside were autosaves of notes from every client sync I'd held in the last 6 months. Including one I distinctly remembered. The one Camille said I forgot to schedule. I opened the file. It had my notes. The meeting date. The email thread that proved I had scheduled it. I sat there frozen, the beginnings of a chill moving across my skin. Because that file didn't just show that I was right. It showed Camille had known I was right, and deliberately left it out of the report she gave Miguel. She hadn't made a mistake. She'd lied. Something shifted in me in that moment. It wasn't rage. It wasn't grief. It was clarity. And it was cold. I started digging. Not out of revenge, not yet. I needed truth. I needed to be sure. Because the worst thing you can do in a world that already doubts you is fight without proof. I went to my inbox archive. Thank God I'd kept a full backup before they shut down my account. I spent hours combing through every message Camille had been CC'd on. Every project we touched together. I wasn't even reading for content. I was reading for patterns. And they were there. Oh, they were everywhere. In one thread, I found she had replied directly to a client without me, apologizing for a delay I supposedly caused, even though the deliverable was on time. She changed the deadline date in her email. In another, she sent Miguel a status update that reworded my contribution to make it look like she'd done it herself. My pitch had become her suggestion. My deck became a collaborative document she had finalized. Everywhere I looked there were fingerprints, deleted attachments, forwarded emails with missing context, Slack messages that were edited after the fact. I downloaded everything. Screenshots, PDFs, file histories. Then I found the phone call. It was buried in my voicemail app. I only remembered it because it was dated the day before I was suspended. A Friday I had spent curled up on my couch, crying and not answering my phone. The voicemail came from one of our vendor partners, Charles. We'd worked with him on a joint pitch 2 quarters ago. He was polite, old school, a little too formal. But in this message he sounded awkward. Hi Jade. I just wanted to confirm something before I finalize our deliverables. Camille said you were stepping away from the lead role and that she would be my primary point of contact from now on. Just wanted to check that's correct. I hope you're okay. He paused before hanging up. I could hear the hesitation in his voice. I replayed the message 5 times. She told him I stepped away. Before HR ever put me on leave. Before any of it was official. She had been clearing me out of my own space like it was already hers. And people were listening. That was the moment I snapped out of survival mode. I wasn't just grieving anymore. I was documenting. Every folder Camille accessed, I searched the metadata for edit histories. Anywhere she had touched a file I'd created, I checked for discrepancies. Formatting changes. Summary shifts. Attribution swaps. I kept notes, not in a Word doc, not in the cloud. On paper. Pages of names, dates, timestamps. Call logs. File edits. Slack messages with original timestamps and their edited versions. Thanks to the message audit log I still had on my phone. And slowly, piece by piece, I built a story. Not an emotional one. Not a dramatic one. A factual one. By the end of the 3rd night I had 2 binders full. Yes, actual binders. I had printed, sorted, labeled and color-coded everything. Because if I was going to war, I wasn't going in swinging wildly. I was going in with receipts. The hardest part was watching her smile online. Camille had posted another update on LinkedIn. Grateful for the growth even through challenges. Leadership isn't a title, it's a mindset. Hundreds of likes. People I used to work with commenting heart emojis and fire gifs like she was some trailblazer. Like she hadn't just buried someone to climb her way up. Made me sick. But it also lit a fire under me. Because every fake smile she posted, every congratulatory comment she collected, it made what I was building feel more urgent. More necessary. I wasn't just clearing my name anymore. I was dragging the truth into the light. The next step was delicate. I needed someone on the inside. Someone who hadn't fully drunk Camille's Kool-Aid. So I reached out to someone I'd trained years ago. Devin. He was junior back then, still fairly new. I had mentored him on his first major project. He had always been quiet, observant, and thoughtful. Never flashy, never political. I texted him late at night. Hey. I know things are weird right now. I won't put you in a position. But can I ask a favor? Strictly off the record. He replied in under a minute. Of course. Over the next few days, Devin quietly confirmed everything I suspected. Camille had started taking meetings without me even before I was placed on leave. She'd been requesting private Slack channels. Asking for edit access to files I was the owner of. Whispering to team members that I was under review for behavioral inconsistencies. Behavioral. He made me sound unstable. Devin didn't say much, but what he did say matched my documentation exactly. So now I had the data, and the witness. It was time. I booked a meeting with HR. Quietly. No fuss. No drama. I walked into that building 2.5 weeks after they'd sent me home. Renee was surprised to see me. Jade, we hadn't expected. I know, I said. But I have some information that I think will clarify a few things. I placed the binders on the table. 2 of them. Thick. Labeled. Tabbed. And then I sat back. I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I just spoke. Very calmly. Page by page. I showed them the doctored emails. The deleted messages. The altered file names. The client complaints redirected to Camille, and hidden from me. I played Charles's voicemail out loud. I even showed the printout of Camille's LinkedIn announcement, posted before HR had even finalized my leave of absence. And when I was done, I slid over the final sheet. A timeline. Date by date. Step by step. Everything she'd done. Renee didn't speak for a while. Miguel was called in halfway through. He read silently. I watched the color drain from his face. When I finished, I stood up. When I finished, I stood up. I'm not asking for favors. Or sympathy. Or a clean slate, I said. I'm just asking you to look at the facts. And ask yourselves, if this was happening to you, what would you do? No one answered. I walked out before they could. That night, I sat on my balcony for the first time in weeks. The air felt different. It wasn't over, not yet. But for the first time in a long time, I wasn't unraveling. I was building. And Camille? She had no idea the storm was coming. It took 2 days. 2 days of silence after I handed them the binders. 2 days of waiting, pacing, second-guessing every page, every timestamp, every tab section I had so carefully labeled. I didn't hear anything from HR. Not an email. Not a call. But then at 8:13 a.m. on a Thursday I got the message. Hi Jade. Please meet us in conference room 5B at 9:30. Miguel will be present. This will be a private and confidential meeting. That was all. No subject line. No context. But I knew what it meant. The storm was gathering and I wasn't the one getting soaked this time. I arrived 15 minutes early. Same blazer I wore the day I first interviewed at the company. Black fitted clean. The same one I almost threw out after Camille tried to rewrite my story. I wore it like armor. The receptionist glanced up when I walked in. Her expression flickered. A kind of recognition almost like guilt. I just nodded. Walked straight to 5B. The room was empty at first, cold, quiet. Then the door opened. Renee walked in with a different energy than I was used to. She didn't offer her usual, "How are you?" She didn't sit across from me. She sat beside me. Followed by Miguel, who looked like he hadn't slept. And Camille. Late of course. Holding a leather planner like she was walking into a TED Talk. Her heels clicked too loudly on the floor. Her eyes flicked to me. She smiled. A short, smug little smile. I said nothing. Renee cleared her throat. Thank you for coming, Camille. We have a few things we'd like to review with you today. Camille tilted her head. Of course. Always happy to support. That fake warmth. That polished charm. It dripped from her voice like syrup. I could feel her assuming she was about to be praised. Maybe offered a new leadership role, maybe asked to take over my projects permanently. She was glowing. And I couldn't wait to watch her fall. Renee reached into the folder on the table. Pulled out a printed sheet. She turned to Camille. This is a timeline we received from Jade earlier this week. It documents discrepancies in project handovers, email manipulation, and access changes involving your credentials. Camille's smile faltered. Miguel leaned forward. We've cross-referenced it with internal server logs. And it seems there's a pattern. Camille laughed softly. I'm sorry. I'm not sure what this is about. Are you saying I did something wrong? No panic in her voice. Just confusion. Fake confusion. Renee didn't flinch. She pulled out the second sheet. We also received this voicemail from Charles. He confirms that you told him Jade had stepped down from her role before any internal changes were finalized. Camille blinked. I don't recall that conversation exactly. We pulled the phone logs. Now it was Miguel speaking. He slid over a transcript. You contacted him on March 6th at 2:12 p.m. You weren't assigned to that project. Jade was. And your message directly contradicted her leadership status. Camille went pale. That was the first crack. But it wasn't the last. Renee continued, unbothered, unshaken. Like a surgeon opening flesh. We've also reviewed audit trails for shared documents. You altered metadata, renamed collaborative reports, and removed Jade's access from at least 6 key decks. Camille swallowed. I was cleaning up formatting. You also deleted 3 threads from the client success folder. Threads where Jade had already addressed concerns you later escalated to Miguel without her knowledge. She blinked rapidly now. I didn't realize. Maybe I misunderstood the chain. No. That was the first time Miguel cut her off. Firm. Low voice. No wiggle room. No, Camille. You didn't misunderstand. You misrepresented. There's a difference. The air changed in the room. That smugness she'd carried in with her? Gone. The polish? Fading. She reached for her water bottle but her hand trembled. Barely, but I saw it. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I just watched. Because now the weight of what she'd done was sitting right in front of her. Labeled, sorted, and time-stamped. And there was no version of the story where she could spin her way out. Renee set down the last folder. We'll be conducting a formal investigation. Effective immediately, you're suspended pending the outcome. Camille opened her mouth. Wait, what? Suspended. Miguel nodded, lips tight. Yes. Please turn in your laptop and access badge before you leave the building today. You'll receive further communication via personal email. Silence. Dead silence. For the first time, Camille didn't have a script. She looked at me. Not with hatred. With fear. And I just tilted my head just like she used to and smiled. Are you okay, Camille? The HR rep escorted her out. She didn't even get to go back to her desk. No goodbye emails. No dramatic exit speech. Just a quiet walk down the hall in heels that suddenly sounded like sirens. I sat in that room still silent, still as Renee turned to me. Her voice softened. We're sorry this took so long. Miguel looked me in the eye, for the first time in weeks. You should never have been put in this position. I nodded. That was all I needed. No parade. No applause. Just acknowledgement. The next week, Camille was officially terminated. The internal announcement didn't give details. They never do. Just a cold, sterile message from HR thanking her for her time with the company. Her office login credentials were deleted by noon. Her Slack profile disappeared. Just like she tried to make me disappear. Only difference, I was still here. People noticed. The same coworkers who had stayed silent? They started showing up again. I always had a weird feeling about her, someone said in the break room. She was so ambitious, another muttered, as if ambition was the crime, not sabotage. Jenna, the one who had messaged me during my leave? She brought me coffee. I didn't know it was that bad, she said quietly. I smiled. It's okay. It wasn't. But it didn't need to be anymore. Devin, sweet, loyal Devin, stopped by my desk the day after I returned. He didn't say much. Just placed a post-it on my desk. It said, "Told you, snakes shed their skin, not their nature." I laughed for the first time in weeks. Not the polite kind. The real kind. The one that starts low in your belly and rises up with light. Camille never reached out. I imagine she didn't want to face the version of me that didn't flinch anymore. The version that didn't protect her. That didn't defend her. That didn't excuse her. And truthfully, I didn't need an apology. She thought she could erase me. What she didn't realize was, I'm not built to be erased. The first day I walked back into the office, everything was different. Not because the walls had changed or the hallway chatter was gone. Oh, that was all still the same. People still carried their coffee cups too close to the edge. The copy machine still made that weird beep every time someone printed in color. But I had changed. The version of me that walked through that door? She wasn't looking for validation anymore. She wasn't trying to prove she belonged. She already knew. I remember standing in the elevator watching the floor numbers climb. My reflection in the mirrored panel looked the same. Blazer, heels, the laptop bag slung over my shoulder. But underneath that, stillness. Confidence. No flinching. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't afraid. I was ready. When I reached my floor, Devin was the first to greet me. He didn't say much, just gave me a little nod and said, "Welcome back." And that meant more than any full-blown apology ever could. I got to my desk and paused. It was clean. Organized. Fresh notepad. Fresh pens. A sticky note that simply said, "You were missed." No name. Just the message. I smiled. Over the next few days, people began to drift in and out of my office. Some came under the guise of small talk. "How's it feel to be back?" Others just stood in the doorway, lingering too long to be casual, like they wanted to say something but couldn't find the words. Eventually a few did. "Jade, I should have said something earlier. I saw what was happening and I didn't know what to do. I always thought something felt off, but Camille was just so confident. I'm sorry I didn't reach out when you were on leave." Each apology came with its own weight. Some I accepted with grace. Others I met with a tight-lipped smile. Because the truth is, they were too late. Not too late to be forgiven, but too late to walk beside me. They watched me drown. And now they wanted to toast my rescue. But I had learned something in the silence. You don't owe everyone a seat at your table just because they show up when the food is ready. A week after I returned, Miguel called me into his office. He looked humble. Not the version of him I'd known before. "Jade," he started, "we mishandled this." "I mishandled it. I saw what I wanted to see because it was easier. And I want to make it right." He paused, then slid a folder across the table. Inside, a promotion offer. Senior Director of Strategy. Came with a salary bump, new direct reports, a full team under me. But more than that, it came with something Camille could never fake. Respect. Earned. Proven. Delivered through fire. I didn't accept the offer right away. I went home, thought about it for 2 days. Not because I was uncertain, but because for the first time in years I realized I had options. Real ones. In that quiet space, just me, my laptop, and a notepad filled with scribbles, I asked myself something I hadn't asked in years. What do you want, Jade? Not what's expected. Not what's safe. Not what keeps you liked. But what lights you up. And that's when the idea started growing. A consultancy. My own. One that trained, mentored, and protected women in male-dominated industries. One that offered support and strategy to professionals who felt invisible, isolated, and unheard. Because I had been all three, and no one should have to survive what I survived just to prove they belong in the room. I spent the next month mapping it out at night, even while I led my team by day. And one morning I walked back into Miguel's office, thanked him for the offer sincerely and turned it down. His eyebrows lifted. "You sure?" I smiled. "I'm building something of my own." It started small. A name. A logo. A mission statement. Then a soft launch. One client. Then and within 6 months, we were profitable. Not wildly. Not flashy. But sustainable. And more than that, impactful. The emails started pouring in. "Thank you for saying what I never could. I thought I was crazy until I heard your story. I didn't know women like you existed." And that's when I realized. Camille didn't ruin me. She revealed me. She stripped away the parts of me that were still playing small. Still waiting for permission. Still trying to be palatable enough to survive corporate politics. She forced me to confront the part of myself that was afraid to own power out loud. No. There was no fear left. I started speaking at panels. Sharing my story. Not with bitterness but with truth. Real truth. The kind that makes people uncomfortable but cracks things open. I remember one woman, a Sioux, came up to me after a keynote and said, "I've been in leadership for 20 years, and no one has ever described what it feels like to be quietly erased the way you just did." I smiled. "That's because we're taught to stay quiet about it." Not anymore. One day I got a message. It was from Camille. Just a single line. "I heard you're doing well. I hope life's been kind." No apology. No accountability. Just vague words tossed into the void. I didn't reply. Because I didn't need closure from her. I'd already written it for myself. There's a kind of peace that comes when you've been through the fire and found out you're still whole. Not untouched. Not unscarred. But whole. Every scar now a signal. A lesson. A line in your story. My story. It doesn't end in an office. It doesn't end in a breakdown. It doesn't end with someone else's lies. Starts with me. To anyone watching who's been there, who's been pushed out, talked over, dismissed, sabotaged, I want you to hear me clearly. You are not crazy. You are not weak. And you are not alone. Some people will try to dim your light because it exposes their shadows. Let them. Because the people who matter, they'll see your light for what it is. And the ones who try to bury you, they'll forget one thing. You were a seed, not a mistake. I used to think that silence was strength. That if I just kept my head down, worked hard enough, smiled through the hits, people would see me, protect me, choose me. But the truth? Silence doesn't save you. Silence lets them rewrite your story and hand it to someone else. So if you're watching this right now and someone is trying to sabotage your name, your work, your sanity, don't go quiet. Go still. Go smart. Go steady. Keep your receipts. Take notes. Breathe. And wait. Because the truth? It always rises. And your moment, it's coming. I know some of you watching this have been through worse. Maybe it wasn't a coworker. Maybe it was a partner. A sibling. A friend. Someone who smiled in your face and still pulled the rug out from under you. That's you. Drop a comment. Tell me your story. Tell me what you survived. Tell me what you're building now. Or tell me you're still in it. Because sometimes all it takes is knowing someone sees you to keep going. I see you. And I'm rooting for you. And hey, if you're still here at this point in the story, first of all, thank you. You've been riding with me through every twist, every heartbreak, every little moment of fight. If you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, now's the time. Like this video if it resonated with you. Comment if you've ever been underestimated and made them regret it. And share this with someone who needs to remember who the hell they are. Oh, before I go, there's a girl on my team now. Just joined last month. Fresh out of grad school. Quiet. Smart. Soft-spoken. She reminds me of someone I used to know. And this time, she won't go unseen. Because I'm standing behind her now, just like no one stood behind me. And that might be the best revenge of all.